Mhm. Okay, we are live. All good. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our pop-up business talk. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, these streams are meant to bring you insights and practical advice directly to the business community. My name is Diana Spinka. I'm the producer of the stream. And as always, we have our host, Vic Nichols, here today. And we're thrilled to welcome our guest, Renee Marino, a true powerhouse in communication coaching and the author of Becoming a Master Communicator.
Whoop, whoop.
Renee, welcome to the podcast, the stream, the show. And tell me, please, why you are doing what you are doing and why communication is important for you.
Well, thank you both for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to start my morning with you. Deanna, I believe that everything in our lives starts with communication. Every single thing, from our relationships to our health to our wealth. And I often tell my clients and those who I'm speaking with, think of one area in your life that is not tied to communication. And yes, not every part of your life, if that's the first thing that comes to mind. But think about, even if you're someone who's trying to lose a few pounds, you're trying to lose weight. Sure, the first thing that comes to mind is like, stop eating so much or exercise.
Mhm.
But really, the first step of that is having that strong communication with yourself to figure out, okay, where have I been going wrong? Where have I been cheating a little bit? And then to have strong communication with your trainer, with your doctor, so they can help you to be as effective as possible. So every part of our lives starts with communication. And when we learn to master this skill, we become limitless.
Yeah, this is so true. Yeah, like when you go to see a doctor, if you don't communicate your issues in the right way, you won't get the result that you need.
Yeah,
And it,
a million percent. Yes.
so, how do you see communication changing in the era of AI?
Oh, well, we are in a day and age of unlimited technology. We have more outlets and vessels to communicate than ever before, which is such a gift in one way, but in another way, it causes a lot of gray area for miscommunication to exist. For example, Victor and I are in a really important, we have a really important matter to discuss. He's texting me, right? And I'm reading back his text from a place of assuming I know his intent. Maybe I feel frustrated. I call this in my book assumption animosity from assuming what you think to be true. And then maybe because we're all humans, right? We often have these assumptions. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe Victor just said that to me. And then I text him back from a place of assuming I knew his intent. And before you know it, we're in a disagreement and we haven't even spoken. But right. So and the
It happens too.
it happens all the time. You know how many relationships I see that are broken apart because of an argument through text messaging? And it sounds so silly, but it happens all the time. So here we are in this day and age of AI, where we have this beautiful resource to use. But I think what's happening is we're depending too much on our digital technology, on the artificial intelligence for our communication. And the one thing we have to understand is the one thing that can never be replaced. AI can never replace that human connection. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to that old school simplicity, the way I refer to it in the book, that old school way of communicating. First, the most clear way to communicate is face to face, in person, where you can feel that person's energy. You can watch their body language. You can hear what they're saying and their breath. That's the most effective way to communicate. And the second step to that, I would say, would be Zoom or something like this, where yes, we are behind a screen, but we can still see one another. We can still sense one another's energy. Phone call after that. And I would say email and text, those are great ways to communicate for short, quick communication. But when it comes to an important matter, we want to make sure that we're really utilizing those more old school ways of communicating.
Well, because it tells you so much,
Yes.
Yeah, somebody's facial expressions, what their demeanor is. Are they sitting up? Are they leaning back? Are they?
Yes.
All of these things are telling you things that they may not want you. They may be shaking their head yes, but they actually mean no because their body's telling you something completely different.
Yes. And Victor, how many times have you experienced maybe a situation where, say, you're sending emails back and forth to someone in a business matter, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a little confused. You're going back and forth for maybe 10, 20 minutes, and then you finally realize, you're like, let me just pick up the phone.
Yep.
And you pick up the phone and you're like, Renee, what was that you meant? And usually 9 times out of 10, within 3 to 5 minutes, the problem's resolved. And you're thinking to yourself, why did I just waste all this time going back and forth through email? So I just want everyone to really understand and realize time is our most precious asset. It's the one thing we can never get back. Money is time. Time is money. So when a matter is important, think to yourself, am I wasting time right now going back and forth through words alone, communicating through just words alone? If that's the case, maybe I need to rethink this. Maybe I'll tell that person, I'll send them a text and say, hey, can we find a time to hop on a Zoom? Or can we find a time to meet in person? Because it just saves you time, saves you energy. And I think most importantly, it saves you from the possibility of missed opportunities.
Yep.
And it happens all the time. I see it time and time again. We're not communicating effectively, and before we know it, that opportunity goes out the window.
And it had nothing to do with whether or not you were prepared for the opportunity,
No.
whether or not, and none of those things even come into play because
Nope.
you never got off the starting line.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. How many times? I can't even tell you how many times, especially early in my career, where I experienced that, and I'm like, I wonder why that was such a difficult thing, and then I always distilled back down to communication.
Yeah, and when we are in a world that feels really complex, right? Because we have so many new applications, things to learn, computer, right? We're on the phone and then we get a text message and then we're getting an email and then someone's calling our name. Like, our brains have begun to speed up because of digital technology. I did so much research for the book, and it's just it's mind blowing how much our minds have changed and our attention spans have waned because we have all this split focus. So my goal and my mission is to bring us back to that simplicity, to that authenticity, because at the end of the day, what I believe, what I know to be true, what I tie all of my success back to is the ability to connect with people in a genuine way. And that only happens through communication. But if we're in a conversation with someone and they're talking to us and all of a sudden we get a text and we're like, oh, yeah,
Yeah. Oh God.
yeah. What would you say, Victor? I don't know about you, but nothing is a bigger turn off to me, for lack of a better way to say it.
That's the perfect way to say it.
Nothing makes me feel more disrespected and disinterested in than when someone checks out because they need to answer a text, or they need to say, oh, I'm sorry, hold on, I'm going to send this email out right now. There's a study done called the iPhone effect that looked at 2 people in a conversation with a cell phone present. Even though neither person picked up the phone during the conversation, neither person looked at the phone, still that phone proved to be a distraction. So think about this. Think about how much more respectful we can be to that other person in that business meeting, how much more focus we can give ourselves if we just put our phones out of sight. And I don't mean just flip it over on the table. I mean, take it off the table, vow to have it in your back pocket or have it in your briefcase for the short time that you're in that meeting. Because what you don't realize is not only is it going to help you focus, but it lets that person know that you are interested in them. And all the human spirit wants is to feel seen, heard, and understood. And when you offer that, you better believe they're going to want to do business with you. They're going to want to have that second conversation. They're going to want to stay in your world because they feel that respect.
It's so funny that you bring that up because this happens to me. It happened to me the other day. Is that I'll tee up a conversation, especially if it's somebody maybe that I don't know so well, like I'm having lunch with them or whatever. The first thing I'll do is I say, oh, well, let me turn off my phone. And I want to see what they're going to do. Okay. Because what I'm doing is I'm saying at that point, I'm preparing to give you my undivided attention because you're here, you drove here, you made the effort to be here, and whoever is texting me or calling me, unless it's an emergency, and I'm not, last time I checked, I'm not a thoracic surgeon. That can wait. Okay. That person, that thing can wait because all they had to do is press a button. You had to actually get here. So that gesture of let me turn off my phone and give you my undivided attention. And I really watch closely to see if other people will mimic that, or they come up with that wonderful, well, man, I just want to let you know, I got to have my phone here because, my dog's paw was hurting this morning and the vet's going to call me with an emergency or something. They're going to come up with something.
Yep. Yeah.
There was a time where I did business and we did business. There were no freaking cell phones.
No.
So that always could wait. Okay.
Always.
Unless you're the surgeon with the scalpel, it can freaking wait.
Yes.
We got it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go. Okay. Thank you.
I want to say I love this point so much. So in my book, I talk about another great book that I refer to called Alone Together.
Mm-hmm.
And what the author states, it was like, I was like, she said this and I was like, boom, drop the microphone. She talked about how, could you imagine if 40, 50 years ago, whatever it might be, before cell phones were around, before we had this instant communication, could you imagine being in a business meeting, very important conversation, and as the person's talking, you start opening up your mail? Yep. Like opening up the envelope, reading, you're like, oh my gosh, I owe that bill. Like, could you imagine how disrespectful that would be?
It's a perfect analogy.
It's the same thing, but because we are just used to having these phones with us like they're an extra limb, we're expected to be okay with it. And I want to start a movement where it's like, no, we're not okay with it. We all deserve that respect. And it's not even that feeling of respect, but it's giving ourselves that space and that grace to be able to not just listen to respond, listen to hear. And that's what I call complete listening. And that's a humongous part of being a master communicator, is that ability to listen in a complete way. And I don't know about you, Victor, Deanna, when I'm on vacation and like we went to Italy last year. And I didn't have my phone out except to take photos. Mm-hmm. I'm not kidding you. I felt like not only was I so present with my husband, was I present to my surroundings, but I felt like the days lasted for 3 days. Like now I literally feel like my life is in fast forward. Like I'm like, wait, what do you mean it's already Wednesday again? It was just last Wednesday. And it's because we are moving so fast and we're doing what's called task switching. Because there is no such thing as multitasking, even though we think that to be true. We're task switching. And every time, now think about this from a business perspective, right? Every time you switch tasks, meaning you go from that email to answering that text message to calling your wife to tell her about dinner, to you are, what's the word? Decreasing the effectiveness of each of those tasks that you're doing. So here, and I know we all think we're superhuman, and we're amazing, limitless beings. But when we're in the office, when we're working, and we are task switching and patting ourselves on the back, what we don't realize is we're leaving crumbs. We're leaving some.
Sometimes you're leaving entire cakes.
Exactly, and this is where the issues begin. They begin very slowly, and before we know it, we're like, oh my goodness, nothing's working out, right? I'm having miscommunication with my team. I'm having miscommunication within my family, and it begins there.
Yeah, definitely. Also, like when you put your phone away, it calms your mind, and because you don't have those distractions. And we got a very good question from Matthew, and he's asking, what about if you have an Apple Watch? Should you take it off?
Oh my gosh.
Renee, you jump in on this one, then I'm going to share something on.
Yes, please. Yeah. Hey Matt. Great question. Yes. Listen, do not disturb is one of the greatest tools inside Apple. And just yesterday, where was I? What was I doing? See, look, I don't remember, you guys. See, we moved too fast. I was doing a podcast interview, and I realized that I had my watch on already, but I just turned on do not disturb. So it literally just doesn't ring, nothing. But yes, if you can have the watch off, most of the time I will not wear my watch if I have a meeting, if I have something like this. Look, no watch on right now, because I just know it distracts us, whether we mean to be distracted or not. If you hear something, you're gonna squirrel, right? Oh, what is that? What is that? And because our attention spans have all gotten smaller and shorter because of digital technology, we have to help ourselves by eliminating and becoming what I call distraction proof. Become distraction proof. If you're communicating and you're on a Zoom or you're on a StreamYard, close out all those other tabs. I know you think we can't tell when you're kind of looking on Amazon for those shoes. We can feel that disconnect, right? You can feel that disconnect. So do yourselves a favor, close out all the tabs, be in a quiet space, turn off your phone, do all the things so that you can help yourself to be more effective.
It's so funny that he mentioned watches of all things, because when you look back in history, and this is really the interesting evolution of what we're talking about in attention. When you look back, after watches actually became fashionable after World War I, and people started wearing them, women started wearing them and things like that. When you went to a formal event, you did not wear a watch. When you went to a party, you didn't wear a watch. And the reason why is that you didn't want anyone to see you just do this.
Yes.
Glance at your wrist was rude. Okay.
And
It was rude. You did not wear, like, if you dressed up and you went to an event or something, you did not wear a watch, period. People didn't start wearing watches until much, much later, because this simple movement was considered rude. And now look where we are.
It's unbelievable. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a story that recently happened that really, really struck a chord within me. And I was happy that it happened because of what I teach and what I do. I was at a speaking event, big event, and I was backstage, and two of the people who were on stage for a panel, so they're speakers, but they were doing a panel. So the one female, it was a female and a male, she complimented me on my dress. So of course we're like chatting back and forth, and it was my husband, myself, and then this woman and this man, both speakers. We're chatting, and I said, oh, so you're both speakers. What do you speak on? How long have you been speaking? And I'm asking them questions, and I'm listening. And then they ask me what I speak on. And I begin telling them, and about 5 seconds later, the woman's phone goes off, and she picks it up, and the two of them, literally at the same time, they look at her phone, and the male says to the female, oh my goodness, is that your dog? Like, I can't believe how cute he is. Literally check out, tune me out, and I went just like this. I couldn't believe it. And I stood there, and I said, come on, honey, and we walked away. They didn't even realize. And I was so taken aback, because here I am thinking, you're on stage speaking. You are serving others, and this is how you treat people behind the scenes and one-on-one.
No way.
Nope. And it was such a confirmation for me, a reminder for me, not that I needed it, but it was such a reminder about how these simple things. See, right now we're in a world of thinking too, like, out there. Everything's out there. I'm going to be successful. I need all the systems, the tools, the processes. I need the latest application. How about this? Forget about all that crap. How about you show a person respect when they're talking, and you listen to them, and you leave your phone aside? If you start there, trust me, it doesn't matter if you have the best systems and tools in the world. If you don't know how to connect with someone in a respectful way, doesn't matter. And you know what? These two people, I believe, speak on stages all over the world. And to me, it doesn't matter, because I've seen that side.
Yeah, and it also says where is the idea of being genuine anymore.
Yes.
Okay. They're
Oh my
they're going to get out there and they're going to do their thing, and they're going to give the dog and pony show. And there's a lot of people who do that extremely well. And we all know people who can do the dog and pony show, but the lack of sincerity.
Yes.
You already have peeked behind the curtain. Okay. This is, a little bit of Oz here. Okay. Pay no attention to the idiot behind the curtain, because the fact of the matter is that there's no genuineness there.
100%. And I say this all the time, Victor, Deanna, I say, I value nothing more in life than truly genuine people. And, I've had the honor of being in Hollywood, some of the biggest names in the world. I've had the honor of working with some of like the greatest minds of our time. And let me tell you, some of them have exceeded my expectations and have become mentors. And
That's great.
some of them I met, and guess what? I can't watch their shows anymore. I'm unimpressed. And that's the thing for me. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how talented, handsome, beautiful you are. If you are not a truly genuine person, I don't care. And that's me. That's what I teach. That's what I believe in.
And that's why you're successful, because you're teaching this to people.
Yeah.
You're teaching this to people who really want to know.
Yes. And Victor, my quote, you can't see it probably back there, but my favorite quote in the world, the quote that represents what I do, my business: people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. Maya Angelou. And let me tell you, that is never truer word stated, because at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, no one gives a crap about how much money you made, but they will remember, I'll never forget.
No, they don't.
That time, Victor, he sat with me when I was, sad, or Victor helped me when I was in a place of confusion or despair. Those are the things that people remember.
Well, 100% true. So for the topic of our conversation today is standing out with effective communication.
Yes.
So besides being genuine, open, right, present, what else do we need to communicate effectively? Let's say in the workspace.
Yeah, let's say, so in the world of AI, so let's take something like ChatGPT, which is such an incredible resource. I love it. The problem that we're seeing is that people are using ChatGPT and they're just sending out exactly word for word everything ChatGPT said. But remember, we are all unique, different individuals. That's where the juice lies, right? The juice lies in our authenticity, in our uniqueness, those little quirks, right? Like Victor said, Renee, I didn't need caffeine today because I know you were hopping on here, right? So we know Renee has energy, right? Whatever that is, that your thing, we all have those things. If we are not using those things in our communication, if we're not being ourselves 100% authentically us in everything we do, we're falling behind, baby. Because the thing is, everybody can use ChatGPT. I'm so proud of the fact that I wrote my book, every single word for word from me, from my heart, from my mind, from God speaking through me. I didn't ChatGPT anything. I didn't have anybody else helping me. I didn't have a ghostwriter. There's nothing wrong with that. I think there are amazing resources. But for me, I'm a writer. And it was important for me to have every word, every story be from me, authentically me. So yes, let's use these resources as tools to aid us in being our most authentic selves. Because sometimes we can't think of like exactly what we want to say, but if we use ChatGPT as a prompt and then we put our own spin on it, that's where the magic happens. So remember, all of these tools are just that, tools, but they are tools to help us pull out our authentic selves. Or that's how I believe they should be used.
You're absolutely, they are tools. Yep.
Yeah, and Victor, if not, we're gonna really turn into a world of robots where everybody's like, okay, yep, I believe this, and it's like, where's the human quality? Where are those assets that make us who we are? Those are the things that people connect with. I know for Victor, that's why Victor and I connected right off the bat. And I'm even thinking as I'm sitting here and looking at you, I'm like, God, I just love Victor. This is why we connected from the beginning, because Victor is so authentically who he is. And he and I resonated with you right away.
Immediately.
And that's why, right? If he came up to me and just spoke from a place of thinking thinking of what I wanted to hear, like, hi, Renee, I'm Victor. I do this, that, me, I'd probably be like, oh, okay.
This isn't that nice.
We connected as human beings, right? I didn't even know what he did at first. He just came up so lovingly, so authentically. And then we found out what we did from a business perspective. That's what creates real relationships, that create opportunities, that create success.
If anybody who's listening to this gets nothing out of this, that what you're talking about right there is really what it is. That is the core of what this is all about, because that is going to help, like you said at the top of this conversation, it's going to help everything you do, all your communications, and every facet of communication that happens in your life. Yes. And, you know, I always say, because of the fact that in my genes is selling, right? I mean, everything is a sale, but it's really not a sale, not in the true version of a sale. It's being authentic, so you know that the person who's dealing with you knows what they're getting. That's the part I'm talking about when I say everything is a sale. This way they know what they're getting. You're not deceiving them in any way by saying, you know, by being something you're not, because most savvy people will find out and realize that you're being disingenuous in some way. It's not only going to hurt you from a personality and a person standpoint of view, but it's going to hurt you in closing a deal, building relationships, making a sale. So many salespeople who I talk to and some that I mentor, I'm actually going to be doing some more mentoring. I was meeting with somebody yesterday about helping them with mentoring of some new entrepreneurs. And that was one of the biggest things that he was talking to me about. He's like, Vic, they just don't know how to do this. And we need somebody to help them in looking at that. That's obviously something, Renee, I'm going to talk to you about offline, but you know, it's a place to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like some people are afraid to show their true authentic self.
Yeah.
That's a great
because they also don't understand who they are. So they try to see like role models and copy paste that type of behavior.
Right.
Because like they see that person is successful, so probably I should be them, you know, or I should act like them, I should look like them. And then there is a lot of problems, or you know, mental problems come along because you don't understand who you are, and you don't understand how you can communicate in your own authentic way.
Yeah.
So if you, Renee, if you can give a few tips how to find your authentic self, that would be cool.
Oh, that is such a great question. See, when I get really excited, then I start singing. So
love it.
All right. So this is why step one of all effective communication is communication with yourself. And we live in a time where we have more distractions than ever to pull us away from who we are and what's going on within. Why? Because we wake up in the morning and instead of connecting with ourselves, we roll over to the nightstand to grab our smartphone, to check emails or hop on social media for what I call the good old S&C, scroll and compare. We look into the lives of others and compare ourselves against their perceived realities. And then we wonder why we don't know who the heck we are, because we're not focusing on us, we're focusing externally. So one of the greatest, most simple, powerful practices that I give to my clients is to wake up in the morning and instead of rolling over to that nightstand, leave the damn smartphone aside and ask yourself one question. How am I feeling? That question could be, what do I want for today? Or that question can be, who am I? Who am I? And you're just having a conversation with yourself. And then take 5 to 10 minutes to write the answer. Now, I'm talking old school, pen to paper. I'm not talking about typing in the notes app on your phone. Reason why. Research cognitive scientist Daniel Willingham has concluded that students remember what they think about. And when they're writing, they're thinking about formulating the letter that formulates the word, that formulates the sentence, thus giving them a deeper understanding of that information. So in this case, we definitely want to be writing because we want to understand who we are. And this is what happens. Sometimes you'll have a minute or two. You may say, like, I don't know why this Renee girl told me to write. Nothing's happening. Good. Keep going.
Yeah.
Because what this does is activate stream of consciousness. And that means pulling those thoughts from your subconscious mind that we are not often aware of, but that are running the show, by the way, pulling them into your conscious mind through your hand and onto the page. And what happens is a beautiful, I call it like a spiritual dump. And after those 5 to 10 minutes are up, take a moment or two and read back what you wrote. Let me tell you, friends, it can be enlightening what you find. I've had times where I'm like, oh, I thought I was over that argument with my husband, but apparently I'm not, because I'm still writing about it.
Right.
All of a sudden, you start getting clarity around what's really going on. So think about how powerful this would be if you out there are thinking to yourself, Renee, I don't know exactly who I am or what I want. Good, that's okay. Write about it, because sometimes things will come out that you weren't even on your radar. And now you can start to get acclimated to who you are. You can start to get in connection with yourself. And that way, the more you do that, and now understand, this is an everyday practice. It takes 5 minutes, people. If we don't have 5 minutes to ourselves, we're not living a life. So take 5 to 10 minutes and do this in the morning, and then do the same thing before bed. Ask yourself, how am I feeling? Or what do I want? Or what fears do I have? Because nothing is more powerful than understanding yourself. And by doing that each and every day, you start to get clear on who that authentic self is.
Yeah, that's such a good practice. When I started going to therapy, I used to set an alarm for every 30 minutes of the day and to check how I'm feeling. So, because like one of my biggest issues was to understand what I'm currently feeling and like where the feeling is coming from. So I would the alarm goes off and I would write, okay, how am I feeling? And the answer, I'm feeling okay, is not good enough. Like you have to go deeper. And it also helps to reflect, to understand deeper feelings, deeper emotions, because when you start asking yourself like one question is okay, but when there's another question, well, like, okay, I'm feeling this, but why I'm feeling this,
Yes.
it uncovers a lot of feelings, a lot of understanding, and it does help to connect with your own self.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And in chapter 1 of my book, I talk about discovering your communication home. And your communication home is basically your most natural way of communicating. And let's face it, we are all a product of our environment, right? The way we grew up, the people we were around. And this is so powerful to understand, because if you may be someone who isn't clear on who you are, or you're not someone who really thinks about yourself, or you don't check in with yourself, maybe you're used to communicating from a place of avoidance, right? Avoiding important topics, avoiding that important conversation, because maybe you grew up in a family. I love this. A client of mine coined this. She said this to me, and I said, oh my goodness, I'm sharing this with the world. She said, Renee, I grew up in a family that was communication phobic. I was like, that's amazing. And she's like, basically, we never talked about anything but surface level things.
Right.
No feelings, right? It was only like, what time is it? Who's going to the store to get milk? Like, that was it. And because of that, she faced a lot of setbacks in her business and even in her personal relationships, because she was used to avoiding, namely avoiding herself, right? So once she started doing this practice, all of a sudden she was like, oh my goodness, like, wow, this is why I avoid. Actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do this in my life. She was getting clarity because she started connecting with herself. So that is the ultimate step 1. Get in communication with yourself. It's the most important relationship of your life. And truth be told, my friends, if you don't have an honest connection and communication within yourself, you can never have effective communication with anyone else.
Boy, do I.
Yeah. This was so well said. We have a few minutes left. So, Renee, could you please say a few more, like maybe the biggest insight that people should take from
and I have a question for you, Renee, after you do that. So
yeah, great. the biggest, I hope the greatest takeaway that those of you listening have is that in this world of AI, remember, it's a gift, it's a resource, it's a tool in our toolkit. It's not the only tool. And the one thing that AI can never replace is human connection, the human heart. So I encourage you to focus more on that, on learning how to connect with people in a real way, learning how to have strong relationships, because those relationships are what lead to opportunity, and those opportunities are what lead to success.
Oh man, oh my God, there's a t-shirt in that somewhere.
Swag, baby, swag.
You gotta make some swag around that. I have a question for you, Renee, which actually the impetus of it is you. I was, as I watch many things that you do on the internet and things like that, you did something recently, and I would be remiss not to bring this up because of what's happening in our world right now, and specifically what's happening in our country, is the idea of having and participating in difficult conversations. You did a video of different steps on how, and you did it around politics, which obviously is the elephant in the room right now.
Yeah.
Okay, right. And some of the things you said were very, things that I had, and there were a couple of things you said, and I'm like, you know what? That's a really good freaking idea. That's a great way to handle it, but and it doesn't have to be politics, but I was just so happy to see that because it was useful. It was very useful. What are some of the, couple of things in having difficult conversations, because you eloquently put it in your video, but I'd love to share it for the folks who haven't, who don't necessarily follow you or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we are all unfortunately in a very divisive time. And it's so interesting to me because I often say you can turn on any news channel, on any network at any time of day and see a lot of people talking over each other, talking at each other, but never talking with each other. And that's because we have all, as a society, gotten so attached to our own labels, whether they be political or religious or cultural. And the minute we're in a conversation and the person who's speaking says something that we identify as a difference, boom, we cut off from listening. And this is why we see the divide we live in today. But if we are looking to become what I call master communicators, to have the best that life has to offer through effective communication, we need to understand that we have to step into the shoes of being complete listeners. And that means stepping back, seeking to understand the person instead of being understood. Right? So often we go into these conversations and we're like, all right, I'm going to let Victor know. Yep. This is what I believe. Yep. He's wrong. And we're so consumed with us and why we're right. But if we can take the power of the pause, right? Remind ourselves that at the end of the day, most of us want the same things, right? We want to feel safe. We want to live a life of health and wealth and prosperity. We want our children to be safe. Like, these are core life things that we all want. So if we can preface any conversation with reminding ourselves, okay, we all want common things. The funniest thing to me is listening often. I'll put on any news channel sometimes and I laugh because I go, these two opposing parties are saying the same damn thing. They want the same thing, but they're just saying it a different way. And they're so tapped out of the other person that they're not even paying attention that we want the same thing. So remind yourself when you're in a conversation, seek to understand. Give that person an open platform to be heard. So that means refrain from jumping in and cutting them off as they're speaking. And even after they're done, don't think that you have to jump right in with something to say. Give yourself a moment or two to process what they said. That way, when you respond, it's from a more authentic place because you've taken a moment to be like, oh, wow, Victor, I never thought of it that way. And then when I respond, it's from a real place.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. That's exactly what I was hoping you would do.
Right.
You also said that you wanted to give something to those who are listening or watching this podcast.
Yes. I would love to give all of you my wonderful resource, and it's 21 ways to use communication to increase business opportunities. And I'm sure we're going to send that, maybe put the link after, but it's a great resource just to give you some simple, quick tools that you can use to really start to increase opportunities for yourself, and just done in simple ways.
Yeah. We should do, and we'll do a follow-up post with that in there too.
Of course. Yeah, it will be just a link where people can download the PDF, I believe.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you everyone who was watching and participating, and thank you, Renee, for taking the time in the morning to speak on our platform. It was so great to talk to you, and it's the conversation, the conversations that we have here, they're so great when we see the connection. And I believe that, Jane, as you and Vic being very genuine people, very open people, the conversation is becoming even more powerful and valuable for the listeners.
We're gonna be able to do more of these, Renee, for sure. And as I and I might as well kind of let the cat out of the bag as we continue to move forward. We do want to start to put together some types of symposiums and things like that. Okay,
awesome.
Where people, we're destination kind of things.
Yes,
people like you, participating in those, where we'll have modules and breakout sessions and things like that. That is an ultimate goal down the road. Just so you kind of give you a little peek behind the curtain as to what we're hoping to do. And I don't think we could possibly do that without including you.
I'm so excited. Victor, we got to add some music. You're going to play some guitar.
And then you got to do, oh yeah, baby. We're going to bring the music. The music has to be part of it.
100%. And wait, I'm going to tell you all this, and I'm telling you this to hold me accountable. If you think that I wrote a song, and this is years ago, before I became a speaker. This was when I was still working on Broadway. I was touring all over the world. I wrote a song called Communicate. Why can't you just communicate? Open your mouth and say what you need to say. And I'm like, what am I doing?
I got to learn that.
You have to learn it. Like, we need to, we're literally, so we're just telling you all now, when you come to one of our symposiums and we're doing this at a location in person, you're going to hear us perform that.
Amen.
Yeah, I think that will be the opening song for every event.
That's going to be the theme song.
That's it.
So you kind of set your destiny years before you started doing this.
I did. It's crazy. It's so funny. And I was talking to my husband about it, because my husband loved that song. When we first started dating, he's like, I would listen to it because it reminded me that I needed to be better about communicating. And I'm like, see, I need to put the song out there, because I think people will really resonate with it.
And we're going to do that for sure.
Great.
Okay. So we're gonna end the stream. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Victor.
And thank you, Matt and Mandel, because I saw you guys made some comments there, and I'll reach out to both of you guys after this.
Yes. Thank you, guys. This was so much fun. Thank you both for having me. Thank you for everyone who tuned in, and I look forward to staying connected.
Awesome.
Yeah, and if everyone who is listening to us want to be a guest on one of our streams, please reach out to Vic or DM me, email at our or vmn at victormnichols.com, so we can communicate and and do more of those valuable and powerful streams.
This was fun. It was. It really was. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Renee.
See you soon, everybody.
Oh, yes.
Okay.